Kala Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Brakatahal 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 the water above called Kadash. I'd like to give the honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that teach us truth, which we know is 100% truth, the true word of our Lord. The title of this lesson is going to be The End of an Empire. And one thing that we know when the empire is on its way out, it has all type of problems and things. We look at go back to the Roman Empire, and before it went down, it had all type of internal struggles, a lot of corruption. Um, the armies were, all over the place. They were pretty much all over. They expanded their armies so far that they pretty much lost control of it, and it was like an internal collapse, mainly from a lot of the corruption and the greed. Well, that's the same thing that we're facing now in this society, in this kingdom, on Babylon the Great, aka America, man. We see the greed, the corruption. The Lord is making all these things known. We see what these people do behind closed doors, man. They're totally wicked. They have no morals. They have no integrity, and they straight up degenerates. And that's how the Roman society became the same way. So Yahweh sets the rise and fall of kingdoms. Daniel chapter 2, verse 21. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. And that's what the Lord does, man. He's the one that controls these rulerships. And right now, we're about to see a regime change. It's so ironic that they're always talking about going these other places and creating a regime change. Well, the regime change is about to come to Babylon the Great, really the whole world. And Yahweh is going to make his grand entrance, man, his grand return. And so we herald that, we look forward to that. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up. And in Babylon has had his season, man. He has had his time. And now his time is up. The clock is ticking. It's ironic. You see when they say TikTok, one of the major social media platforms where a lot of information goes out. And we're counting the last days of Babylon the Great, man. No empire lasts forever. Power is loaned, not owned. So you don't own this, it's only for a short period of time. Every kingdom has an appointed end. Empires rise when aligned with purpose. They fall when they become corrupt, proud, and oppressive. Now we know this place became powerful by being oppressive from the beginning, because by putting our people, you so-called Black, Hispanics, Native Americans, into shadow slavery, that's how they were able to gain such prominence, and come up so fast and be able to rule over the world. And it's not ironic that every nation that had the Israelites in their captivity, they were the power nation at that time. Anybody that had us under their control, and that's not that's by design, man. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And we know that Esau Edom, mainly DJ Trump, these so-called megalites or whatever they are, they had a very proud spirit, man, especially going into before they went in over there to Iran. And now that they're over there, you see that spirit is fading fast, man, because they say it's not going to be as easy as they thought it was going to be. They thought it was going to be like a clean sweep, regime change when they took out the leaders, like they did in Venezuela and these other nations. Daniel chapter 4, verse 30, 31. Daniel chapter 4, verse 30 and 31. Is not this the year? Is this not the great Babylon that I have built? While the word was in the king's mouth, judgment fell. While the words was in the king's mouth, the judgment fell. Shalakia. So judgment is coming, man. This place is about to go down. You know, it's so out of order, man. It's go everything that they do goes against the Bible, but yet they profess to be Christians. Yet they profess, the Bible is the book of the land, but they don't practice it, man. Everything they do is opposite and contrary to the Bible. And how we know that? We look at these homosexual laws and things that they have. They matter of fact, they even push the agenda, and our people sign on to it, man. Therefore, our people are going to be counted as the 2/3, man. Are going to be the 2/3 is going to be destroyed, because they sign with these things with Babylon the Great, man. Um, Everything they do, marriage laws, um, dietary laws, everything they do goes against the law, statutes, commandments of the Bible. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5 through 8. Because he transgresseth by wine, neither keepeth at home. Shall not these take up a parable against him? And Babylon the Great, aka America, is all over the place, man. She has, I forget, like 600 something military bases all over the world, and so she's in everybody else's land trying to control their governments, trying to control their people. And pretty much any place that she's at, there's oppression going on, and 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 within her 250 years of existence, man, I think she's been in war damn near 200 and I forget what the number is. Let me see if I can find it real quick. How many wars have America been in since it's been in existence? How many years? America is 250 years old. And how many wars has America been in? There's no single number because it depends on what you count. Major declared wars, 5. That's not what I want. How many years? Okay, I had to flip it around. It's like because the offset is so astronomical. You have to flip the question around. So I said, how many years has America have not been at war? Let's put it that way. Time spent at war. Historians generally agree Babylon the Great, America, has been involved in war or military conflict over 220 to 230 of its 250 years. So she's been ruling by that sword, man. That's how she's been keep getting her gains. And what that means, years at peace. Only 15 to 20 years have total has she been at peace the whole time she's been at war. And it's ironic that they changed the name from the Department of Defense now to the Department of War, which is a proper name for it. Nothing about them is about defense. It's all on the offense, going after and targeting these other nations, man, to steal their resources, to control their people. let's go back up to Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 7 and 8. Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. And so, this may be the time that Babylon goes down, man. That this be her time.
It rhymes very, very loudly. First, Alexander the Great. Okay, Alexander the Great. Now everyone knows Alexander. He conquered Egypt. He conquered Mesopotamia.
Fair use, fair use. This is Professor Jane. He's like this professor from out in way out in the Far East, and he does a lot of predictions off of things, from history and stuff like that. But listen what he says about title is called "Every Empire That Attacked Iran Died." There, America is next. Professor Jane, and it's fair use only for educational purposes, not for monetary gain.
He conquered Persia, what is today Iran. And people say, well, wait a minute. Didn't Alexander actually win? Didn't he conquer Persia? Yes, he technically conquered Persia. But what happened next? He died at 32 years old. His empire immediately collapsed. His generals fought each other. The Macedonian Empire was finished. And in its place, who rose to power? The Parthians, Iranians, who then controlled the Middle East for the next 500 years. So the lesson here is simple. You can temporarily defeat Iran, but Iran defeats you in the long run. Second, the Roman Empire. So the Romans were the greatest military power of the ancient world. Nobody came close. And the Romans fought the Parthians, Iranians, for over 300 years. 300 years. Julius Caesar planned to invade Persia, but was assassinated before he could. Emperor Crassus invaded and was destroyed at the Battle of Carrhae in 53 BCE, one of Rome's greatest military defeats in history. Emperor Trajan invaded and technically won, but immediately had to retreat because of uprisings everywhere. Emperor Julian invaded in 363 CE and died in battle. 300 years of war. And what happened to Rome? Rome fell, and Iran, the Sassanid Persian Empire, was still standing. Third, the Arab Caliphate. Now this is interesting because people often forget this. The Arabs did conquer Iran in the 7th century CE, but what happened? Iran absorbed the Arab conquerors. The Persians converted to Islam. Yes, but they transformed Islam into something distinctly Persian. They gave the world Persian art, Persian poetry, Persian philosophy, Persian science. And within a few centuries, Iranian dynasties, the Buyids, the Samanids, the Safavids, were ruling again. Iran was never truly conquered. It absorbed its conquerors and made them Iranian. Fourth, the Mongols. Now this is perhaps the most dramatic example. The Mongols in the 13th century were the most destructive military force in human history. They destroyed Baghdad. They destroyed cities across Central Asia. They killed millions. And yes, they conquered Iran too. But again, what happened? The Mongol conquerors converted to Islam. They adopted Persian culture. They became Persians. The Ilkhanate, the Mongol rulers of Iran, became patrons of Persian art and literature. Iran absorbed the Mongols. Fifth, the Soviet Union, more recently. In the 20th century, the Soviet Union occupied northern Iran twice, once during World War I and once during World War II. Both times, they were eventually forced to leave. In 1946, Stalin refused to withdraw Soviet troops from northern Iran. This was one of the first crises of the Cold War, and the Soviets were eventually forced out, a nuclear superpower, forced out of Iran. So this is the pattern. Let me be very clear about this because I want you to understand this deeply. Iran is not just a country. It is a civilizational force. It has been continuously inhabited for over 3,000 years. It has one of the oldest continuous cultures in the world. And throughout all of history, every empire that has tried to permanently subjugate Iran has failed. The empires fell. Iran survived. So now I want to go deeper. I want to use game theory and structural analysis to explain why this pattern exists. Because this is not just luck. This is not just geography. There are specific structural reasons why Iran defeats empires. Reason one, strategic depth. So Iran is a very large country. It is 4 times the size of Iraq. It has a population of of 90 million people. It has mountains, the Zagros Mountains in the west, the Alborz Mountains in the north. It has deserts. It has difficult terrain everywhere. Napoleon famously said, "Never march on Moscow." He could have also said, "Never march on Tehran." We know from my earlier analysis that conquering Iran would require at minimum 3 to 4 million soldiers. The entire active US military is about 1.3 million, so the math simply does not work. There is no scenario in which America has enough soldiers to control Iranian territory. None. Zero. Reason 2, the inverted military pyramid. Now let me explain this concept because it is very important. In a normal military, you have what I call the cost pyramid. At the base, the biggest group, you have infantry soldiers. They are cheap, they are flexible, they can go anywhere. Above them you have armor, tanks. Above that you have naval power. And at the very top, the most expensive and least flexible, you have air power. Now wars are usually wars of attrition. If you want to win a war of attrition, your cheapest and most flexible resource, soldiers, must form the base of your strategy. This is how every successful empire in history fought wars. But America has an inverted pyramid. Air power is at the base. Everything is built around air power. And why? Because of the military-industrial complex. Air power is the most expensive. It generates the most contracts. It makes the most money for Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. So the entire American military strategy is built around selling expensive weapon systems,
That's
not
true.
around winning wars. This is why you have the F-35 fighter jet, $100 million each, 26 years to develop. And the Iranians shoot one down. This is why you have the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, $13 billion. And it has to run away from the Persian Gulf 3 weeks after arriving.
I know this to be true because I've seen where they handed out military contracts based on people who they knew, and it'd be a shitty ass contract, but there's so much corruption involved. They still award them the contract, and a lot of times the shit that they're paying for, it is inadequate equipment, but it's all about greasing their buddies' hands. At the end of the day, it's all about them getting paid, man. So it's really not about the soldiers and not about that. And so it's been so much that's going on over the years. Now they finding out that the war has changed, man. The battlefield has changed. And Iran is kind of proving that right now. But let me let him go on.
That's why you have the Patriot missile system, billions of dollars, and cheap Iranian drones fly right past it. The American military is not designed to win wars. It is designed to generate profit for the military-industrial complex. And against Iran, this is catastrophic. Reason 3, asymmetric cost exchange. Now this is perhaps the most devastating strategic reality facing America right now. And I want you to really understand this because this is how Iran destroys empires today. Not with swords or horses, but with mathematics. Consider this. One Iranian drone costs $50,000. One American interceptor missile costs between $3 million and $10 million, depending on the system. So every time Iran shoots one drone and America tries to shoot it down, America spends at minimum 60 times more money than Iran. 60 times. Now, Iran does not shoot one drone. Iran shoots hundreds of drones simultaneously, overwhelming American air defenses. We saw a single Iranian ballistic missile being targeted by 11 different American interceptors. All 11 missed. That is tens of millions of dollars in American ordnance gone to stop one missile. America is racing to accomplish its mission before it runs out of interceptors. Let me say that again. The most powerful military in human history is racing against the clock before it runs out of weapons. That is the reality of this war. And this is ancient Persian strategy, by the way. You do not fight the empire head on. You bleed it slowly. You drain its resources. You exhaust its will. This is what the Parthians did to Rome for 300 years. This is what the Iranians are doing to America today. Reason 4, the will to fight. And this brings us to perhaps the most important strategic factor of all, will. I want you to understand something about Iranian civilization. This is not just a government fighting a war. This is a civilization that has been fighting for its survival for 3,000 years. In Iranian eschatology, in their religious understanding, this war against America and Israel is literally a war against the great Satan. This is existential. This is sacred. We discussed before that in any war, you need 3 things: unity, capacity, and determination. Iran has all 3. What about America? We know that only 40% of Americans support this war. Trump is asking for a $20 billion war budget from a Congress that is deeply divided. The Pentagon is afraid to report casualties because of political backlash. American soldiers are dying and the government is hiding the numbers. The contrast could not be more stark. On one side, you have a civilization that has been preparing for this war for 20 years, studying American tactics, building drone factories, mapping every American base in the Middle East. On the other side, you have an administration that had no plan beyond the initial bombing and assumed Iran would simply surrender. They did not expect Iran to fight back. Let me say that again. They did not
Like
expect Iran
Venezuela.
to fight back. That is the level of hubris, of arrogance that we are dealing
That
with.
proud
Now, I want to
spirit
discuss
that is
something I
speak
have
of.
talked about before, which is very important.
Pride goeth
War
for
is
destruction.
not just fought on the battlefield. War is fought across 4 dimensions: the military dimension, the economic dimension, the political dimension, and the narrative dimension. And here is the key insight. America is trying to make the political, economic, and narrative dimensions conform to its military strategy. Iran is using its military strategy to shape the political, economic, and narrative dimensions. These are completely opposite approaches, and Iran's approach is far more sophisticated. Let me explain. America's strategy is simple: bomb Iran into submission, force a surrender, install a friendly government, control the oil. That is it. That is the entire plan. And to make this work, America needs the economy to stay stable, the allies to stay loyal, and the media to stay supportive. But what is actually happening? The economy is being disrupted. Oil prices are threatening to go above $100 a barrel. Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, the largest asset management company in the world, the man who controls trillions of dollars, he went on BBC and said, and I am paraphrasing, that if Iran maintains control of the Strait of Hormuz, we could see $150 oil for years. That means global recession. The head of the world's largest investment firm is on BBC warning about recession because of this war. That is not a stable economy supporting military strategy. That is an economy being held hostage by Iranian military strategy. Now, Iran's strategy is completely different. Iran's military moves are calibrated to achieve economic, political, and narrative goals simultaneously. They control the Strait of Hormuz, but strategically. Chinese ships pass freely because China is Iran's main oil buyer. Friendly nations like Qatar and Oman are accommodated. This is not random aggression. This is precise, calculated geopolitical leverage. Politically, Iran is splitting the Gulf states. Qatar and Oman are moving away from the American position. Even Saudi Arabia and UAE, who wanted regime change in Iran, are now watching nervously as their water supplies and food imports are threatened. And narratively, Iran is winning global opinion. You have large numbers of Americans who are openly rooting for Iran in this war. That is extraordinary. That has never happened before in an American war.
And that's because they're losing the propaganda war because truth is coming out, about why they're fighting these wars and what's causing these wars. And and that's through the internet. The Lord created the internet. He allowed man to create the internet so a lot of the truth can come out and things being revealed. So people are not just getting their information from one source. They're able to get a bunch of, because there's going to be a lot of propaganda on both sides, but people are able to sift through and find out, and realize what is true and what is not, and they're making their decision off of that, and that's why they try to control the propaganda highway. Why they try to take over these sites to be able to control what information goes out. But I'm gonna pretty much stop it there with him. But and he's right. He said a lot of the people are not feeling this. They like to call it an occupation, but it's actually a war, man. It's just the beginning of the World War III. And I kind of relate this to General Armstrong Custer. Anybody remember him? He was a famous general for America, pretty much represent the American symbol at the time. And when he lost that battle, man, it was a major defeat because it hurt the pride of the nation. They were so built up and conquering these other, especially these tribes, these smaller tribes here in Babylon the Great. The defeat happened at the Battle of Little Bighorn, June 25th, 26th, 1876. So almost 150 years coming this June, man, when it happened. How ironic, Custer and 5 companies of the 7th Cavalry were wiped out by a large native coalition led by figures like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Because you have to think about it now. This is Northern Kingdom, and a lot of these tribes were fighting amongst each other, but they came together in one coalition and helped defeat um, General Custer at the time. And here are the real reasons he lost. Not one mistake, but a chain of them. And when I read these off, see how much that reflects today. You know, he underestimated the enemy. Custer expected a small camp he could scatter. Instead, he rode into one of the largest gatherings of Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, Arapaho warriors, likely 1,500 to 2,500 fighters. He thought he was attacking. He actually ran into a massive unified force. Number two, he split his forces. Custer divided his regiment into separate battalions, Reno into separate battalions. He left each group weaker and unable to support each other. And same way with Babylon the Great, man, they all over the goddamn place. They're down in South America creating havoc. They got the forces spread everywhere, doing shit up in well, some shit they was doing in talking about going to take Cuba and some parts of Africa. So they all over the places, man. The forces spread thin. Divide your strength in front of a strong army. He refused key support. He declined. And that same way, like say he split his forces. Like say, yeah, that same with Babylon the Great, man, it's all over the place. So he refused key support. One thing about Babylon the Great, she's lost all her support because these other nations were kind of trying to warn her not to go into Iran, leave that place alone, man. You know, and them following after the lead of them small hatters over there. They went in there, and now they just stirred up a hornet's nest. He declined additional troops, infantry, and reinforcements, Gatling guns, early machine guns. He prioritized speed and glory over firepower and safety. Same with Babylon the Great. She thought that she was going to go in there and overwhelm the Iranians, the Persians, with superior air force and power by blowing them up, and dropping bombs and shooting missiles over there. But the only thing it did made those people dig in even further, and so it just created a no-win situation. Verse 4, he attacked too quickly. Instead of waiting and scouting properly, he launched an immediate assault. Who that sounds like, man? Who does that sound like? And he feared the village might scatter if he delayed, so he traded strategy for urgency. And what they DJ Trump say, man, I went over there because I was expecting a preemptive strike, so that's why we went in there and attacked early in the middle of negotiations and wiped out their and killed their supreme leader, unalived their supreme leader. Number 5, he had faulty intelligence. Scouts warned him the force was large, but he misjudged the scale. He believed that native forces would flee as in past encounters. And same way with Babylon the Great, man. These other nations try to warn Babylon the Great, don't go over there, These other nations, like these allies, say don't go over there. You're gonna create something that we're not ready for, we're not prepared for. That's why her allies are starting to turn on her, and eventually they're all going to turn on Babylon the Great, that great whore that sits upon the beast, that's spoken of in Revelation chapter 17, and they're going to fire their missiles on that whore, man. They're going to burn her alive. He fought based on assumptions, not current reality. And same with Babylon the Great. We went over Venezuela and wiped them out in a matter of hours, took over their leadership. And with that proud spirit, thinking that you can go do the same thing everywhere else over the world with your superior power, kind of find out, everybody's not built the same. Verse 6, the opponents were unified and prepared. Same with Iran, man. So they've been preparing for this for 20 years, when they first went over there and started attacking these people. They knew that they was on that list that list of 7, and they were the last ones on the list. Syria had just went down, so they knew that they was coming, man. You know, they had pretty much told them, we coming for y'all. So what you think they're going to do? They had 20 years to prepare for this is where we at now, man. And all this leads to Lord's prophecy being fulfilled, man. That third woe, the valley of the battle of the valley of Armageddon. Verse number 7, he got surrounded. Once engaged, Custer's detachment was outnumbered, cut off, and encircled. And they talking about putting ground troops over there, putting boots on the ground. And that place is, the way it's set up, man, it's like a death trap, the high mountain range, because the Iranians have the high ground. And you're talking about bringing your troops in there. Once you get them in there, like this one, this military guy was saying, once you put the troops in there, you're not going to be able to reinforce them. You can't bring them supplies, so they're going to pretty much be on their own. It's like putting them in a death trap. And as Iranians been saying, they've been talking shit. They say, okay, bring them over. We've been waiting. Bring them over here. And I think they put out a video here recently, said they're going to burn them alive when they come over there. They said prepared to be burned alive. Strategic lesson, Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18. Pride goeth before destruction. Luke chapter 14, verse 31. What king sitteth not down first and consulted whether he be able to with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? So, that's DJ Trump, man. He ain't sit down with no council, man. He got a whole bunch of yes men around him, and they just pretty much doing whatever he tell them to do, and he's taking his marching orders from BB, not a Jew over there. And so it's this beautiful setup that the Lord is orchestrating really at the end of the day, man. It's all being set up by Shem Yahweh to bring in the new rulership. So Lord will, man, this lesson's edifying. We're in a beautiful time, just keep your head on the swivel, man. Be prepared because anything may happen at any time. With that, say shalom.